Hi everyone, this is Suzanne Wagner, and thank you for joining me on my daily numerology and astrology. This one happens to be for March 19th, 2021. If you add all those numbers together, you get the number 18, and if you add the 1 and the 8 together, you get the number 9. The number 9 is a number of resolutions, forgiveness, and choice. A choice to let the past live only in the past. It is a choice to move forward in life and propel ourselves into a very new place, armed with lessons learned and wisdom gained. The past teaches us to not make the same mistakes. Problems arise when we refused to take in the terrible history of humanity. We want to believe that we know what is right. We want to believe fairy tales and believe that our side is the right side and we had righteousness and religion, spirituality, and God on our side. We want to believe that we know what we know is not an opinion. We do not want to feel the upset, pain, and despair of our historical past. The number 9 is a choice to let the horror of humanity's past deeds hit full force and make us realize how easy it is for such events to happen again when you have a population willing to be deaf, dumb, and blind to the historical facts and the truth. Large populations of such groups, then, can be manipulated by the clever minds of those in power because they have not studied the pathways and pitfalls of our histories. Some will become destined to repeat those patterns. Completion comes when we recognize that no matter how uncomfortable the truth is, it is better to understand and know the facts so we do not become victims of our own avoidance. The astrology today. The moon spends the day playing in the curious sign of Gemini, and because it aligns with Mars, it is clear that minds are going to be moving quickly. Focus might be a bit of a problem. I keep noticing that myself, but we might find many interesting aspects that stimulate and excite. Ideas are easy to come by. It is in choice where things will be a challenge. Some moments might have you racing for a decision, but I would hold back and not make significant choices under this astrology. Racing thoughts tend to react rather than think the steps through clearly. Too many options cause chaos and concern down the road. It is best to not let things settle by slowing it down. It's best to let things settle by slowing it down and recognizing that rushing often will not get us the result we wanted. The moon trines Saturn, and that gives us some reins to pull up on this energetic horse that wants to bolt. Harness that energy and find a way to let things unfold in a more balanced way. Such powerful energy supports a sharp and observant mind, something very helpful after the last few days and weeks of mental stress. Saturn and Ceres sextile, and it adds significant value to reorganizing what is relevant and essential. Responsibilities are important, and clarity comes when you embrace them and are willing to do the heavier work because it is the right thing to do. We are preparing for the shift out of Pisces and into Aries, and soon it's going to be a big energetic shift. So enjoy the deepening happening today, as tomorrow we are leaping forward. My quote for today: completion comes when we begin to recognize that no matter how uncomfortable the truth is, it is better to understand and to know the facts so we do not become victims of our own avoidance. And my blog for today. Okay, get ready. This one's going to be a little bit longer. Okay. A massive insight leaped into my awareness over the past few months. As I point this out, I remind everyone that this is my perspective based on my perceptions with those in my reality that I have known for a very long time. And this may not be true for everyone. I totally understand that. I am sharing a perspective that finally fits the pieces of a personality type that I keep encountering in my life. Perhaps my efforts will also illuminate the patterns of someone in your life. I was having a conversation with someone I have known well and that I used to date in my 20s. This person has been in a dying process for 10 years because of many complicated health issues. In his life-death process, he repeatedly refused to allow others with insight and experience to help him. He might try, in a limited way, to let the information from others in, but he needed them to think and like him personally. He needed others to admire his intellect before he could feel safe and trust them. But he had a lot of internal fear running. Imagine how your life would be if you would not let any information in unless the other person thinks that you are smart and they personally think you are very cool. His excuse forever has been, he knows better than anyone else. He's smarter than the doctors. They are all idiots and don't know anything. Those are his words. He loves to look on the internet for those that agree with him and his viewpoints. In our conversation, I could see, once again, that a lot of his avoidance behavior around making clear choices and decisions was directly related to his paralyzing internal fear. He is afraid of everything on so many apparent levels. He is fearful of a normal life. He is fearful of staying put in one place. He's terrified of making mistakes and the wrong choice. In his past, his fear was so intense, he literally quit his medical practice and went off to find enlightenment with gurus for the rest of his life. I have tried to tell him this repeatedly for years, but inevitably he would shut me down saying I don't know anything and he is more intelligent than me. When I was younger, that strategy worked because he was 12 years older than me. I was in my 20s and what did I know anyway? He learned to bully others with his intellect and get them to back down. It made him constantly be drawn to young people because they were more vulnerable to his projection and he could look older and wiser and more competent. He desperately needed others to look up to him. But then, over time, he would say to me, I should have listened to you about that stock investment. You were right. I would have made millions if I had listened to your intuition. He labeled my knowing as intuition, but what my intuition kept identifying was an underlying feeling, a feeling that something was a lie and that something was being avoided. I am again listening to his excuses and rationalizations, and everything in my gut is contrary to his intellectual argument. I have always seen and known in my core that he used his intellect to avoid feeling his fear. He used information as a weapon to avoid the truth. His fear of fully embracing life made him not commit to me, his health, life, business, all sorts of things. A few days ago, I shared my perspective with him again, and this time, for the first time, he was startled, looked at it, and then reluctantly, and yet objectively, agreed with me. I was shocked. Now, I have known him for almost 40 years, quite a while. He is never married. I was probably the person he could have married if he could have embraced the fear earlier. But he could hide that paralytic fear behind all the power, education, intellect, ego, and money. A problem that I have seen in some of my extremely wealthy clients. I do not think that we can see until life beats us over the head enough for us to let go of our ego. And being an influential person with money insulates an ego to the point that they get to have the luxury of not thinking that there is anything wrong with them. For years I encountered his brilliant mind that would twist information around, and I could see that he was unwilling to see any viewpoint other than his own. He was so intelligent that he could avoid and evade the truth that anyone was trying to show him, and his defense was always something similar to, "You're not as smart as me." I have learned that intelligence alone does not give the correct answers, and brilliant minds can be the most susceptible because they rely on their intelligence exclusively and use it as a defense against information that does not fit into their projected reality. He also used information on the internet to validate his intellectual and egoic position that made him feel strong, righteous, better than. That way, he avoided the truth of his paralyzing fear. It is hard to admit when we are afraid. I've spent my life being afraid. I remember the guides telling me when I was a child that if I listened to the fear and allowed it to define my existence, it would be an unfulfilling and empty life. The angels said that if they could get me through fear, they could get anyone through fear. They said that fear was, by far, the most toxic and debilitating emotional element on this planet. They said that fear motivated hate, rage, revenge, war, famine, and disease. Fear stops people from trying new things that are outside their norm. Fear manifests as justifications. Fear manifests as a feeling that they just don't want to try, or they're just not going to do something. Fear manifests as the excuse that someone is taking away my freedom. Fear manifests as not choosing. Avoidance is a manifestation of fear. I consider it a big win that finally, after 40 years, I was able to get this man to see that all his choices were never choices, but avoidances. I finally got him to see that his fear has been a toxic poison running his life and creating all the supposed errors and mistakes that he has labeled in his world, and that fear was what has manifested his debilitating illness and suffering. Now that he sees it, he's not sure what to do next. It is difficult to just let that much fear go. Can we adjust to these massive changes happening in the world? We are afraid that we cannot. Some think that if we resist the direction that life is pulling us, we will feel safe and prove that this massive wave of change is the wrong direction. The problem with that is that if we keep resisting, what if we miss the wave and are caught behind and never really catch up again? I say that because we are at an unprecedented moment in history. Technology is about to explode and take us in a direction that we have never gone before. The force of that wave is not something anyone should want to resist, because resistance to that strong of a force could take you right out of the game completely. Notice all the people choosing to leave the planet. Look, I know, everyone is afraid, and afraid of different things. But fear is more often than not real. Start to notice that you can be afraid, but you also know that people are desperately trying to help you. Humanity makes mistakes, that's for sure. But look past the potential for error and feel into the intention that someone is holding for you. Everyone is doing their very best. Please, let others help you. I have learned that you do not resolve fear by avoiding what you are fearing. You must directly confront that fear and do what seems terrifying. In that way, you learn to dispel the illusions of the mind and ego and discover that there is a vast and wonderful world out there for you to experience. But you have to have the courage to recognize your own fear first. Thanks, everyone.